It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Welcome to Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. We believe that retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. Well, welcome to this very first Retire Repurposed episode of 2025. Today, Taatjes delves into the timeless wisdom of C.S. Lewis to reshape how we think about retirement and purpose. Whether you're planning for retirement or already there, this conversation will challenge you to expand your vision and create space for something bigger. Join us as we explore why the scope of your dreams matter, how heavenly ambitions can enhance your earthly journey, and why this year, 2025, might be your year to think differently about what retirement could be. If your current retirement vision isn't filling you with hope and anticipation, this episode is your invitation to dream bigger and open your life to new possibilities. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. Jared's the best to join you on another episode of Retire Repurposed. Happy New Year, by the way, our first episode since clicking the calendar over to 2025. If you have been listening to our shows, we really dove deep into the vision of retirees last week to wrap up 2024. If you missed last week's show, by the way, go check that out. This is an inspiring show where we are talking about, does it have to be the same year? Why does 2025 have to be the same year and repeat? Or maybe something that is even smaller than 2024. And I know what you're thinking. I'm a retiree, so we don't think that way. We don't think bigger and better as the years go on. And so we kind of called bluff on that mindset last week. And so if you are maybe struggling to find your way, or maybe you're just struggling to find hope or excitement towards your life and this year, maybe you've set a few New Year's resolutions, which is certainly great, but we're talking about a whole new state of being where we look at our life in a totally different way, where this year can be the best year. Regardless of how old you are, your current status on employment, whether you're retired or not, that should be the mindset going into a brand new year. This is going to be a more abundant and bigger year in every facet of your life. So if you need that type of motivation, I encourage you to go back and listen to last week's show. Taatjes joins me now on the show, and I know that's your mentality for life, for you personally, but certainly for retirees as well. And it's no reason, it's not hard to find the reason why. That's just not really the mindset that retirees have and get from society, certainly if you look at what they get on a daily basis.
No, I think too many times society does this to people, certainly as they age, regardless if they're retiring or not. It's like, get out of the way. Let young people get in and take care of it now. You're moving too slow. You're driving too slow. Whatever it is. Yeah. Really, people. And I think we hear that enough that you start to believe it. Mm-hmm. And when you hear something over and over from society, and maybe it's from community, wherever you're hearing that, it's negative. Yeah. You can start to believe it about yourself. And Jared, I remember way back when we first started this platform of Repurposed, it came from a heart of, I get to see, witness, visit with so many just extraordinary retirees that are doing so much for the kingdom of God, doing so much for their communities. I get to witness that. Why are some of these people not excited about next year? Why are they not excited what's coming? And I think sometimes it's, yes, our bodies are not at what they used to be. For some of us, it means changing certainly how we look at what we can and can't do from an activity standpoint. But there's a ton of things that actually get better with age. There's a ton of things that as people come into this last chapter of life, they actually should be seeing it more of from a growth mindset, something that I think all retirees need to hear today.
Well, you touched on a very important topic, and that's excitement. I think that life should be exciting. It shouldn't be kind of the doldrums of you turn the calendar and it's just another year of existing. And so I think that you touch on a really good point. I would challenge retirees as well that if you look at your year ahead and you're not excited, I think you need to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit. I don't think life is supposed to be not exciting. Not that it doesn't have challenges, not that it doesn't have difficult things that we go through, not that it doesn't have work to do, whatever capacity it looks like. But I mean, I think that if you are truly connected to God, as we're going to talk about in this show, that should bring you some level of, there should be a visceral reaction or feeling that you get. And if not, I would just challenge you, like we did on last week's show, to think bigger. Consider what else is possible as we go into this first part of this year.
Yeah, abundance mindset, right, Jared? And we're thinking not just financial, but abundance mindset means I can do more. God, you've given me so much to steward. I can do more with it. I don't want to be the servant from the parable of talents who just buries what he's been giving and sits back and then presents to the master just what he started with. No, we want to do more with what we've given. And whether that's your time, talent, or treasure, we got to be thinking in this abundance mindset.
Yeah, well, I always go back to John 10:10. I've come to have life and have it to the full. So for anybody who thinks that that's not for them, it is for them. And to me, that really, really proves it well.
Does that say while I'm in my 20s and 30s?
Right, exactly.
Or does it say my life, right? That's something that I think too many times, even as you get into your 40s and 50s and you start thinking of things you can't do anymore. No, it doesn't say about age. Everybody should take that scripture and apply it to what we're doing. And it's not going to be every day. Believe me, I don't live that way every day. But more and more, I'm trying to say, okay, let's have a heart of gratitude. Let's be more positive, and let's look at what can be done, not what can't.
Yeah, it's a great topic. I love talking about it. If you missed last week's show, go back and check it out and get inspired and get this type of mindset in your soul and resonate with that. And again, this really comes down to a way that we think. And if you can open up different levels of thinking, it will open up God's ability to work in your life specifically where you have that fullness that John 10:10 talked about. Ben, today we're talking about, again, trying to get people inspired, motivated, think bigger about their life. You want to talk about some specific quotes, but really at the end of the day, this is coming back to like, this is the time. Why not this year be the year that it's the biggest year of your life in all aspects?
Yeah, Jerry, there's so many things that we want people who are living a repurposed retirement to look at differently than somebody who just says, hey, I'm retired, right? That takes that mindset of my identity as a retired person. No, we want them to think bigger. We want them to be able to set a goal or dream a dream, something that just keeps coming up. And that's one of my quotes that I love from C.S. Lewis. There's two we're going to cover today. The first one is, you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. C.S. Lewis. And there's an individual that changed lives right into the later half of his life and did actually some of his best work later in his life. And I think so many people forget that their 60s, 70s, even 80s can be some of the most impactful times. But it starts with realizing it and like C.S. Lewis says, setting a new goal or dreaming a new dream.
This idea of dream, I always think of Proverbs 16:9. I always come back to Proverbs 16:9. Man casts a vision, God directs the steps. I think that God gives us obviously freedom and ability to think and cast those visions and dream those new dreams. What an honor it is to be able to have that privilege to do that, no matter what time of the life you're in. In your opinion, why do people give up on that dream? Is it just an age thing? I know we've been pouncing on the societal impacts of people of retirement on people, but in your opinion, how come some people gravitate and get it and other people don't get it?
Well, I think sometimes it's by the time you're in certainly for a retiree in your 50s, 60s, 70s, you've had enough dreams that haven't come true. I really believe that. I think there's enough people that at some point in their life are like, yeah, I used to think that way, and now I'm just kind of accepting that life is going to look differently. And I don't like that, and I know the reality of it is that not everything will work out the way that we thought it would. In everybody's life, there's things that they wish they'd done differently. There's things that they thought were going to look different. That's part of life. But what I don't want people to think is, well, because it didn't work last time, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to accept what I've been given and accept my lot, if you will, and just move on and just kind of be living in a kind of mediocre life, right? So if something hasn't come to fruition for you, don't think that the next thing won't. I can remember even in this business, certainly the financial business we have, there's lots of times I can remember early on that the success didn't happen. If you want to just look at the financial success, and it just wasn't working the way we thought. And then pivoted, did something different. Pivoted, did something different again. That is part of life. You make changes as you go. You learn as you go. And when you are open to, yes, continuing to dream, continuing to have that drive, things can happen. I can tell you this: they won't happen for sure if you don't.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that things that spark God to work in our life is desire. Like if we're hungry and we seek, that's kind of where the scripture, like if you're seeking me, you'll find me, right? If you are truly seeking something with pure desire, like a new dream, like a new goal, or a new life, or something new, like He will give it to you. I can't imagine why He wouldn't want to do that to you. But sometimes we don't have that desire. I would challenge people, like, pray for the desire to have the desire. You know what I'm saying? Like, start there. Because what I'm hearing from you in the way that you just described certain people, they kind of lose hope, right? And so because they lost hope, they lose the desire. But God can actually work with a desire to even have a desire. You know what I'm saying? Like He can kind of wake that up. You know what I mean? And also too, you know this, we've talked a lot about this, like off air. Some of those challenges, some of those things that didn't work out, lots of times can actually be the gateway that you need for the next big thing. Talk about that just a little bit for some retirees. Maybe give whatever instances you want to give, but something that didn't work out but could be kind of the ticket for the next big thing this year.
Well, I mean, even small things, Jared. I think, I've seen retirees retire with this expectation of this will be my best season of life. Get into that mode, probably thinking based on what they've heard from society and what they've seen. Oh, yeah, it's a permanent vacation feel. It's going to be the best years of my life. And then kind of see that it wasn't when they started because their focus was wrong, and kind of go through some painful times. Yeah, my kids didn't really want to be with me, which I thought, and I was going to volunteer here, and really they said they were full and they didn't need me. And what do you know, though, a month or two passes or 6 months, and that restful period, that Sabbath, allowed that person to get time to really take that break, to digest. What did I like about my job? What didn't I? What am I missing the most? What people am I missing? What people groups, etc. And now they walk into just the perfect volunteer thing, or they walk into the perfect new job, new career, repurpose, right? That's what we're after there. So, it happens more times than I think people would like, is like the pain, the uncertainty, the mistakes that we've made are actually still part of bringing you to actually where you needed to be.
Another piece of this puzzle, and you touched on it last week, but I want to bring it up again because this is so important. If you don't know what the dream or the vision is, you encourage people last week, like double down on your time, talent, your treasure. Double down on generosity, double down on serving, double down on utilizing your time and your skills and your talents to help other people. That sometimes opens up the door as well to give you that dream, right?
Yeah, and I think, my other quote I want to touch on, Jared, from C.S. Lewis today, is aim for heaven and you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you will get neither. So when you're looking at your time, your talent, or your treasure, if it starts with a kingdom focus, an others focused, I'll add that in there, because when I'm thinking of people aiming for heaven, they're looking more and more like Jesus. They're looking more and more like He did when He was here, a servant, right? So we have that servant mentality, whether it be our time, talent, or treasure, and we do those things, you will get earth thrown in. And what C.S. Lewis is saying there is like you may think the key to like your happiness, you feeling good about your life, and really even earth's rewards, like literally the rewards of earth, which could be money, which could be contentment, whatever it looks like, that will come from you again having this mindset, this aim that is aimed towards heaven, that's aimed toward fulfilling what God is trying to do through you in your community and your family.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I encourage people to listen to what Ben just said, because when you do that, you're aligning your actions, right? You're aligning your actions to God's heart, which is servanthood, right? And obviously that's kind of a fundamental theme of what we're talking about here. And I actually had a friend of mine who were kind of in a small group together, and he actually encouraged me personally just last week. He's like, Jared, he goes, the fervor that you have had towards building X, Y, and Z in your life in the last 2 years, he goes, I want you to double down on that in 2025 to helping people. And then when you do that with no expectation, right? You don't do that with like, okay, now I'm going to get this out of it. Bam, like you're opening up these supernatural doors that weren't open before. What resonates with you with that?
Well, I mean, the supernatural's God, right? And God has a plan for each of us. He has a plan that will bring us closer to Him, not further.
Right.
A plan that if we listen to Him, I believe He does want what's best for us. He's a loving God, and just God too, but a loving one. And I love this this thought that if I'm with Him more, I will be more in tune with what He wants.
Yep.
He wants good for me, and those things will happen.
Yep.
Jared, if there's anything that my personal, we've talked in this in the past, like the patterns of this world, and how we have to watch out for the patterns of the world. What patterns have I struggled with in the past? I go back to last year. And man, things are going good, and we're kind of going through this growth in the business, going through growth in family, and guess who gets a little more reliant on self? Like, oh, I got this. I can do this without God. I get a little further from Him. I start to walk on, my own pathway.
Yep.
And there's always something that brings me back. Hopefully it's something like, just a seeing without the pain, but sometimes it's actual pain. Like, don't forget, I still need Him. I've had that in the past. But right now I'm just trying to get closer to God so that way I can be more in tune with what He has for me, which I believe is good. And when I get too far on my own, I miss things. There's things that I think opportunities, there's people that I need to be in contact with. There's, so many things that God would want me to walk into that I miss when I'm not spending enough time with Him. And that's something that I'm trying to work on.
Well, you bring up a good point here, and I'm going to throw something at you and our audience here, and we'll see how this sticks, right? So what you just described was, whenever things go well, a little bit more me gets injected into the equation, right? What you are actually doing is you're shutting off the ability for Him to work in your life, because now you're saying, essentially, you're not saying this verbally, but you're saying, I got this, right? Anytime we say, I got this, you're now shutting off the flow for His ability to work in your life. Are you with me so far?
100%
okay.
so far, yep.
So going back to the beginning of this conversation where you're like, it's time to dream new dreams, have big plans, have big goals that's not dependent on your age. When you decide not to have those dreams, to lose hope, have fear, what you are doing indirectly in the spiritual is you are shutting off that channel to flow. You know what I'm saying? And so I think what we are saying in whatever context, whether it's like getting a little bit too, I've got this, or a little less direct and maybe a little bit more subtle, is when you lose hope and you don't have the dream, or maybe you don't even believe that this year is going to be any different. You are in the supernatural. You're stifling that flow, and it's not a Him problem because He's got the keys. He's got the fullness, right? John 10:10. It's I'm shutting off the faucet. And so that's a tough pill for people to swallow, because it puts the accountability in their lap. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people lose hope because they've lost hope in his ability to change the situation. And what you have done in the supernatural is you've shut off the faucet. And I've learned to be more aware of very subtle ways that I'm doing that. That could be a mindset. Could be something that I believe that's kind of buried deep inside. Could be how I handle money. Could be how I handle relationships. Could be how I react with my daughter. Could be how I react with my wife. These are all ways that you subtly say, I got this. Yours is very kind of more visible and easy to spot from the outside, but it's those subtle ones that'll get you. What sticks with that?
Well, it sticks with that again, as I've shared on the show in the past, the closest I've ever been to God and letting him work, opening that faucet, if you will, like you're saying, and really drinking from the fire hose of that faucet was, when my daughter, my firstborn, was sitting in a children's hospital. And I'm when she was first born and she couldn't tell us what was hurting other than just crying and crying and crying. And those late nights, sitting alone, actually not alone, with my Bible in the family waiting room when my wife was, I just had to get out of the room. And my wife's in there with Lauren, and Lauren's screaming, and the doctor's like, we don't know what to do. We're trying to give her pain meds, and it's taking time. And is this a newborn crying, or is this a newborn in pain because she just had kidney surgery? And I remember like almost seeing God. Like I'm in my Bible and I'm reading it. And I'm like, this peace that was being felt in that time when it should be the worst time, right? Because your daughter's going through that. And yet all of a sudden this peace wash over me in that family waiting room in my Bible. Well, I was so close to God in that moment that he was able to like directly, I feel like he was able to directly allow me to feel peace because I was listening to him. He was my friend instead of what it looks like for me. A lot of times, Jared is, he's like the person that I only ask when I need something. And how common isn't that? We always ask him, we're things aren't going good. Well, I need this. Things aren't going good. I need that. And that's when we try to get close to him. Again, the pattern of this world. And when I look at our society today, Jared, I look at the world today, there's a reason that, societies don't last forever. There's a reason that people tend to, at some point, not need God and forget about him is when things get too good. My trips to Haiti, everybody there believes in God. They talk about him all the time. There's big smiles, and not everybody, but there's big smiles from the believers there. They're in tune with him because they know they do rely on him for every single meal. They rely on him more so than we do. And when we get in this mindset of, we've got it so good here in America, which we do, and we don't say, thank you, God, and remember how this is coming to us, and we say, I did this on my own, that is the beginning of the end, I think.
Yeah, that's a crazy story. I've heard that many times from you, but that was an external circumstance that forced that upon you, right? What if you could actually manufacture that result without having to go
without
through
the
that?
pain?
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Oh,
right?
man.
What's interesting too, that the Bible verse you keep referring to, don't be conformed to the patterns of this world. It's Romans 12:2, where the other half of that is that we are to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, right?
Yep.
What have we been talking about?
Mindset.
Exactly. This is all we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks now, is really how we think. So again, to start kind of landing this plane here in the next few minutes, if you want to have a crazy, big, abundant 2025 that will blow your mind, you have to, it's going to start with how you think about it. And if you can adjust those subtle things that are shutting off that flow, identify those, switch those up, and turn that more into alignment with God's fullness, John 10:10, then you'll start to see it. And you may not see it right away, but that's where faith comes in, and certainty. We talk about that as well, where you do things with your money, your time, your actions, your time, talent, treasure, and you double down on those things with the right intention. With the right mindset, not having the intentions. Bam, buckle up, right?
Yeah, good things can happen.
How do you bet?
And you have to believe in expectancy, right? That those things will happen.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, it's because you are open. You that faucet you were talking about earlier, don't shut it off. Leave it on, whatever that looks like. As God is trying to pour into you, don't shut him off. Be open to what he's saying.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.